My mom kicked me out for her new family, then demanded college money from my siblings when she found out I was successful. To put things in perspective, my mother gave birth to me at the age of 20. My biological father was never involved. He never wanted children. They had only been dating for a few months when she became pregnant, and she gave him the option to leave, which he did. Because of the bitterness of their breakup, she chose not to demand child support, and he refused to pay. Never talking again was convenient for both of them. She was fortunate to have my grandparents' unwavering support, which enabled her to finish school and secure employment. She dated a couple of men while I was younger, and when I was about 8 years old, she started dating Harry, a coworker. After dating for over 3 years, they got married, although we weren't very close. Harry and I got along well enough to tolerate each other. For years after they married, my mom became pregnant with twins. Everyone was overjoyed, including me. In retrospect, I probably should have known what was going to happen, but I was too preoccupied with the idea that my mother would always support me. I hoped she wouldn't abandon me after everything we had been through together. However, after she married Harry, she obviously started to distance herself from me, and we began to drift apart. I thought it was just a phase, and things would improve during her pregnancy. I did my best to be supportive, but she seemed to get angrier every time I was around. To avoid disturbing her, I tried to keep my distance, but it wasn't enough. 6 months after she gave birth to the twins, she and Harry sat me down for a serious conversation. They told me they couldn't keep me in the house, since they had 2 children to look after. Because I was only 16, they couldn't legally throw me out without getting into trouble. Instead, they tried to persuade me to leave by emphasizing the financial burden of providing for a large family. I found this ridiculous because we had been living comfortably on the salaries of 2 web engineers. It was clear they just wanted me gone. I didn't want to leave, so I suggested getting a part-time job to help with expenses. My mother rejected the idea, saying she wanted to save money and resources for the children who deserved it more. That was the moment I realized I had to leave. It was obvious they didn't want me there anymore. They knew I had enough self-respect to walk away without a formal eviction. I had nowhere else to go, so I went straight to my grandparents' house. They were angry at my mother, but didn't cut her off because they wanted to be in the twins' lives. I found part-time work at 16 because I didn't want to burden my grandparents financially. Over the years, my mother and I barely spoke. When she and Harry visited my grandparents, I saw them occasionally, but they never inquired about me. They acted as if I didn't exist. When it came time for college, I had to rely on friends to help me settle in because my mother and Harry refused to assist me. My grandparents were too old and frail. I had to take out student loans, and thankfully, one of my uncles co-signed them for me. I worked through college to ensure I could keep up with my payments and build financial security. My mother never reached out, not even congratulate me when I graduated. Only my grandparents were there. After college, I started working and living independently. The first few years were tough, but I managed to pay my bills, reduce my debt, and even save a little for the future. Eventually, I climbed the ranks in my company. Now, at nearly 33, I hold a senior management position in the same organization where I started my career. 4 months ago, I received a major promotion, but I kept it private, telling only a few trusted people, including my uncle as a thank you for his past support. Unfortunately, my uncle mentioned my success to my mother at a family gathering. Soon after, she and Harry showed up at my door unannounced, insisting on speaking with me. I hadn't spoken to her in years. I had blocked her on everything. My grandparents respected my boundaries and never brought her up, so I was unaware of how she had been doing. They started by expressing surprise that I hadn't told them about my promotion. Instead of congratulating me, they accused me of shutting them out unfairly. They claimed they had prioritized their children over me, and that I should have understood and accepted it. They even tried to gaslight me into believing I was the one at fault for not supporting their decision. Then came the real reason for their visit: money. They explained that their business had failed, and they were struggling financially. With the twins approaching college age, they needed help paying for their education. They suggested that I could make it up to them by covering my half-sibling's tuition. I was stunned. They had refused to help me when I was in college, yet they expected me to support the very children they had abandoned me for. I immediately told them no, making it clear that they had no right to ask me for anything. I reminded them that they had explicitly stated they wanted to save their resources for children who deserved it more. Well, now that those children were adults, it was time for them to figure things out on their own. They became angry, saying I was being selfish and ungrateful. My mother argued that she had sacrificed a lot to raise me, and that this was my chance to repay her. I found it absurd. Raising me was a favor. It was her responsibility. They tried to guilt-trip me, but I stood my ground and asked them to leave. When they refused, I threatened to call the police. That finally got them to go. Since then, my mother has been harassing me through emails, trying to make me feel guilty. She keeps reminding me of everything she did for me growing up, as if I owe her something. But she only raised me when it was convenient for her. The moment I became an inconvenience, she discarded me. Now, years later, she's trying to manipulate me into taking responsibility for her poor choices. I block her emails, but she keeps making new accounts to contact me. Today, she crossed a line. She showed up at my workplace. Thankfully, I had taken the day off due to feeling under the weather, so she left quickly without causing a scene. I shudder to think what she would have done if I had been there. This has gone far enough. I'm considering taking legal action to prevent her from harassing me further. I refuse to let her guilt-trip me into paying for her other children's education. I worked hard to get to where I am today. Without her support,